Welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we are talking with Mark Hughes. Mark is a psychic medium, ufologist, paranormal investigator, and host of the podcast Mark's Unexplained World. Welcome to the show, Mark. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Nice to meet you both.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you as well. How long have you been investigating the paranormal and what led you down this path?
Right. I've probably been investigating it for about 10 years, maybe. But I originally got into it when I was quite a small child. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old when I lived in a haunted house, if you like. And I was quite fascinated with what was going on in the house. Although I was petrified at first, like most young children, but I started to get sort of quite interested in what it was, and then sort of took it from there. Really, I mean, this was the days before the internet, so you had to go to the library or the nearest W.H. Smith's or something like that to actually find a book on this sort of thing. And then as time went on, I got more and more involved. I involved myself more and more in the subject. I started studying UFOs, and I think Rendlesham Forest UFO incident suddenly came up about 1980. So I got quite hooked on that. And then of course, like everybody else, you grow up, you get married, you have children. So a lot of it sat on the back burner for a little while, but I was still always interested. I was still buying magazines and stuff. And then of course, all my kids all grown up, left home. They've given me wonderful grandchildren, and the last 10 years, I've suddenly found myself with lots of spare time. Of course, I'm retired as well, so that's even better. So I've been able to kind of perfect my craft as a medium with proper training and everything, and got a lot more involved with going to haunted locations and with ufology as well. I'm sort of I'm not, I can put it, I think the phrase is jack of all trades, master of none.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like everything. You're always learning, especially with the
Yeah.
paranormal. There's always so much to learn. And just when you think, yeah, I've got this sus, I know what to do now. I can sort this spirit out. Or it's a completely different setup, completely different environment. And so probably the last few years, I've been a medium for about 6 years now, and I use oracle cards for readings. If I'm doing one-to-one readings, I'll do oracle cards. I also practice dowsing rods, pendulums, dowsing pendulums, and I also a little bit I use rune stones as well, that sort of thing. So that's what I tend to use when I'm doing my readings. So that's like the journey, but very abridged, as it were. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a long journey. So, what were some of those experiences as a kid growing up in a haunted house?
Well, we lived in a place over here in the UK called Bolton, which is sort of north of England. And this was during the 1970s. And the 1970s was a very dark time. I think over here in the UK, there was a big recession on, and it was just a very, very dark environment. And we had things like fog, smog, smoke. Wasn't the most pleasant of areas to grow up in. And we lived on a terrace house, which was like on the end road. There was about 6 or 7 houses, just in one row on a main road, and the house itself was very dark. And even as a kid, I used to feel, well, this is, don't like this place, but I had no choice. I had to live there. Now, bedrooms in the 1970s, of course, were simply a bed and a wardrobe. And that was it. You didn't have television or flat screens or anything like that. It was simply a place you went to bed and went to sleep and got your school gear. But what I used to, one time, in fact, it happened several times, but one thing that did actually happen was we lived there, I don't know, about a month or so, and I had to get ready to go to school in the morning. And now the wardrobe I had was a very old type fashioned wardrobe, but it was a glossy brown. So it was like somebody put a load of varnish over it, so you could actually see your reflection in it. So it was quite useful because I didn't have a mirror in my room or anything like that. And I put my school tie on in the morning and get myself sorted. And was when I was looking into the look at my reflection, making sure my hair was flat and what have you. Behind me, there'd be another figure, and I couldn't make out the features of the figure, but I remember one time I was looking, and I was petrified. I was about 8 years old, something like that. And of course, I looked behind me, and there was no one there. The figure was still in the on the wardrobe, the actual reflection. So, I mean, This was about, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. This was wasn't late at night. And so, oh my God, I went to school so damn fast. I couldn't get out of the house quick enough. This happened quite a few times. This figure would appear. I spoke to my mother about it. My mother was always very in tune with paranormal psychic phenomena as well. I think that's probably where I get my gift from. And she sort of said yes, that wouldn't surprise me, and sort of just left it like that. I was a kid; she probably didn't want to frighten me. But as time went on, what I used to do at night, when I used to go to bed at night, I would make sure I had all the pajamas on and the bed was ready and everything, and I would switch the light off the bedroom, and I would dash to the bed so damn fast, in fear I might get attacked. And I did this pretty much every night. And then one night I was lying in bed trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden the end of the bed sort of went down one corner, like someone was sitting on it, and I could feel my blankets being pulled at the same time. And I just thought, oh, this doesn't sound right, and I got really scared. And then I sort of got brave one night, because this happened over several nights. I got brave, and I actually had a look through a crack in the duvet, and I could see this what looked like a middle-aged, slightly overweight old lady. And she looked like some sort of matron or something. She had like the hat, with the white brim, and she was just sat on the bed looking at me. Why I didn't wet the bed that night, I really don't know. But I was absolutely petrified. And of course, I went straight back under the sheets. This happened on and off for months. One day, it was Christmas Eve one year. I was a little bit older, and this was still going on. And our neighbours decided they would have Christmas Eve drinks for people who lived in this row of terrace houses. And I was invited. I must have been, I don't know, 9, 10, something like that. Me and my sister, we went round. There was a few other neighbours came round. It was quite a jolly old session. Now, our neighbours who were hosting the event had 2 young boys, but these boys were sort of 5 and 6. So it wasn't really for them to be down there watching their mum and dad slowly drinking themselves into a stupor. So one day, we were all there. They were having drinks and chat, and I was playing with the other kids and what have you. And all of a sudden, we heard this almighty scream come from the bedroom, from one of the boys. And one of their brothers or sisters, might have been a brother who was down there with us, turned around to his mum and said, "I bet you can see that old lady in his room again." And the whole room suddenly went silent. And it turned out we'd all seen this same lady sat on our beds watching us as we tried to sleep. But nobody had said anything until he suddenly said it then. So of course this fascinated me. I did get so scared then, because I realized I wasn't alone. And I started to talk to my mother a little bit more about the sort of things that were going on. And my mum was, she was very in tune with it. And we used to have things like bits of poltergeist activity, if you like. We would go down in the morning and the lamp would be from one corner of the room into another one. And the only way we'd know that is because we'd trip over the cable trying to get to the kitchen. It's just little things like that. And we had my youngest sister, who must have only been about 2 years old, probably younger than that, 18 months perhaps. And we had someone come round just to take some photographs of her, just for a family portrait thing. And he was a professional photographer, I remember rightly. He had a great big camera, and he just pressed the button, he'd go click, 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 just constantly, because when you're dealing with children, you can't necessarily rely on them smiling at the right time. And he took all these pictures, got to about, I don't know, 30, 40 pictures, and he sent them back to us to have a look to see which one we liked. And they were all pretty much the same. And they were all smiling, little cherub that she was, smiling away happily on all these photographs. And then all of a sudden, there was this one picture where the photograph was like a mist going across it. And my sister's face was fear. There wasn't a smile, but it was only on this one photograph. It didn't wasn't like any of the others. You went to the next picture, it was right back to normal again, smiling away quite happily. And we don't remember her getting upset at all. You know, I mean, he literally just pressed a button and there was hundreds of clicks that went off, like the old journalist cameras they used to have, you know, in just a chance. So we had a lot more things like that that would happen. We would hear voices coming from one corner of the room, and there was times when my mum would go up to get my youngest sister out of her cot, and all her toys would be on the floor outside the cot in a little circle, cuddly teddy bears and what have you, in just a small circle outside the cot. So it was all sorts of weird and wonderful things like that. Of course, I was fascinated. By then, I wasn't scared anymore. I was more sort of, whoa, yeah, what is it? Well, how does this happen? And things like that. And so I got really interested in the subject. And then all of a sudden, there was a program that came on. Now, you guys are a little bit younger than me, so you might not remember it, but it is from your side of the world. In the 70s, there was a television program called The Fantastic Journey. It was about a group of people who would travel on a boat in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, and they vanish. Now, my mum just suddenly said to me, "Oh yeah, Bermuda Triangle." And again, I went, "What's the Bermuda Triangle?" And she gave me brief details about Flight 19 and the equinox and all these other things that disappeared. And that was it. I was straight down the library. And I was just fascinated with this subject of Bermuda Triangle, the fact that all these people had disappeared or appeared and things like that. So the more I looked into it, the more I found, the more I got interested. And then by about 1980, you had Rendlesham Forest UFO. Do you know about that one at all? Have you heard about that one?
I don't know.
No? Oh, I'll briefly touch on it. But I think it was Christmas 1980. There was over here in, I think it was Norfolk, there was you had an American air base over here in the UK at the time. And there was all of a sudden in the woods that were outside the air base, all this strange phenomenon was happening. There was a UFO actually landed in the middle of the forest, and it was witnessed by several soldiers. And they tried to sort of say to the captain, "My God, there's a UFO in the forest, there's a UFO in the forest." Of course, they wanted, the powers that be wanted this silenced as quick as possible, so they weren't allowed to talk about it again. Until the next night, when it all started up again, there was more UFO activity within Rendlesham Forest itself. And this happened over 3 nights. In the end, how they kept it quiet, I don't know. I think they come out some landish excuse saying, "Oh yeah, it wasn't a UFO, it was a lighthouse." Yeah, okay. Do you know what I mean? The usual things that these people find to try and dismiss it quickly, you know. So when that came along, and of course I was hooked on that as well, and it sort of it sort of went on from there really. And if to me, if it's out of the ordinary, I'm interested.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much more to find if it's not mundane, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
So
cool that
yeah,
you had a parent that was supportive of you looking into that stuff. I think that makes a big difference.
absolutely. I mean, my father was interested, but he was a working man, working class. He wanted to make sure we had enough money to put meals on the table and stuff like that. But my mother really was interested. She could have been a medium herself, but she chose not to. I don't really know why. She just didn't. It may have been a time. I mean, again, this was the 70s. It may have been. She may have been worried about a stigma that might have been attached to being a medium or something like that. That may be why she didn't do it. But yeah. Oh no, she was. It was great to be able to talk to her about it. There was no one else really. I mean, I was the weird kid at school, you see, while everybody else was reading Janet and John or ABC or whatever. I was the kid dressed in black, reading books about death and weird stuff. It's no wonder I didn't turn out gothic, really.
Yeah. I think so many people in this, who are interested in this type of stuff do feel like, you know, kind of like an outcast at a certain point. But Now we get to talk about it on podcasts and,
Oh,
find our other people who are interested.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's what I've found. I mean, now, I mean, it is so easy to find information now on various things around.
Yeah.
Being a podcast, you probably have the same problem yourself. You're always looking for something that hasn't been discussed or something that's different, and it's very difficult now, to actually find a subject that nobody else has done. To be
Yeah.
honest, and also, I mean, you can find like something that might fill 5-10 minutes, but I like to try and make my podcast at least 30 minutes. So trying to stretch it out can be
Yeah.
it can be a little bit of a hairy time, but I get there.
Absolutely.
You kind of briefly mentioned we're talking about the types of divination tools that you use. You had mentioned runes. Is that Futhark or is that something else?
Is that what? Sorry.
Futhark, the type of
Oh
runes you
yes,
use?
right. Yeah. Food. Yeah, that is. Yeah. It is. The rune stones I don't use as often because I haven't quite worked out all the languages or what the signature what the individual signs mean. Most of them I have, but some of them I'm not so sure. But it's funny, because when I started, a reason why I started to do rune stones is I wanted to learn a different language. I tend to practice Wicca. I tend to practice that side of it, but I wanted to try and learn. I wanted, instead of just, I don't know, lighting a candle every height of summer and height of winter, I wanted to try and do a little bit more, just to sort of prove to myself that, and to others, that yes, I do this. And I chose runestones because it was like a completely different language, and it was a completely different, yeah, I suppose because it was different. And when I started studying it, I learned all about Thor, and I learned all about how Wednesday is the special day, and things like that. And I started to learn these little insignia, if you like, on each stone. So what I did was one Wednesday is I got an old tree branch, and I cut a load of I think about 30 little pebbles off, and I spent the day painting different markings on them. So I was quite pleased I actually made them myself. It took me about 2 or 3 days, but I was really chuffed when I did it. I tend to use them. I tend to use them if I do get a fellow Wicca who wants a reading. Not to show off, but I tend to think, well, they'll have a better understanding of what I'm trying to do. If I'm doing like a general reading, then I tend to use my oracle cards. I have a specific set that I use called Alien Oracle. They're basically they're Alien Oracle, but they're also cartoon Alien Oracle because I wanted to try and use something that reflected my personality a bit. Because most people that know me know that I tend to have way out ideas, things like
Sounds
that.
like a very cool deck.
Yeah.
When you're doing readings,
Mm.
what do you feel like you're connecting with to receive the messages? I mean, obviously you're using the tools, but
Yeah.
what else is supporting those readings for you?
For me, I use my spirit guides. I have 3 guides. The one I use the most is I call him Old Man because apparently I wouldn't be able to pronounce his name, so I always call him Old
Mhm.
Man. And he seems to be the one that really helps me or helps me interpret what I see. Um, a lot of it, I don't mean to just be dismissive of mediums because there's some excellent mediums out there that work really hard, but a lot of it is your own intuition, your own gut feeling, and I'll put a standard set of be 3 cards in front of in front of my client, and straight away a story will come out at me. And when I first started doing it, and I may have had some bad, well, not bad news, but news I knew they wouldn't be comfortable with. And you sort of detach yourself from. They're not a friend; they're a client. They paid you, or they've come here for a genuine reading. And when you start to approach it, and the more you talk, and the more you pick up on what the cards are telling you, I find the more detail I can give. It's like a vicious circle, not vicious circle, like a circle and I suddenly find myself with a complete story. Um, Sometimes it is. I mean, I tend to say to my clients, please don't tell me anything because I need to start from fresh. And some of them say, "Oh yeah, that must be my auntie May." She blah 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 blah. And I say, because you don't want that. You don't want the ego to tell you, yeah, that's our Auntie May. You need to still rely on your own instincts and things like that. But having said that, I have done readings for people who will sit there with their arms folded, and you talk and you tell them what you're picking up, and they go, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you think, okay, am I right? Am I wrong? So it's your own intuition at the end of the day. And I find now that I'll give a reading, whether they can take it or not, or whether they're happy or not. You've got to be professional at the end of the day and say, this is what I've picked up, and let them deal with the information that they want. But I tend to think that everybody has got this gift. I tend to think that everybody can do this. It's just we now live in what I call a tick box society. We tend to be very black and white. I believe there is a grey. I believe there is an area of us that's our instincts. We use our instincts. We use our intuitions. What I find ironic in some respects is you've got a lot of CEOs or company directors, and they make split decisions because based on the bottom line or how many boxes they ticked. But they're also using their instincts and their intuition to make the decisions that they make. So in some ways, I'm not saying they're mediums, but they are using that gift in a different context.
Yeah,
I think.
I definitely agree with that. I think you're right. I mean, we all have access to intuition. I think, like anything, it's a muscle that can be developed even more. Some people have it more naturally. They're more naturally open, but time and commitment and,
yes,
purposefully, trying to enhance your intuition. I think you're right. Anybody can tap into that.
Absolutely. One of the things I do is what's known as remote viewing. Basically, you put yourself into a sort of trance, if you like, and you try and go to certain areas of the world or anywhere really, and you try and explain. Now, in order for me to, when I first did remote viewing, it was difficult, but there's an app that you can use, and it gives you like a blank square, and you just concentrate and use your instincts again, and just draw whatever comes to mind: triangles, circles, trees, words, anything. And then 24 hours, 12 hours later, or 24 hours later, sorry, it will show you what the picture is. And sometimes you get smack on, sometimes you're way out. But I found by using that, as you say, it's like your brain is a muscle, it just needs practice. I found by using that, I got better, and I'm able to do remote viewing a little bit more competently than I used to. But as you say, it's like everything, it takes practice.
Yeah, that's very cool. What's the name of that app?
It's on my phone, which I'm using at the moment.
That's okay.
I'll tell you what I'll do. When it's finished, I'll send you over the link to the actual app. It's a really clever app. It's a really good app.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. All good fun.
You described yourself to us as an open-minded skeptic. So I want to know more about that. Tell us how you view that. Yeah.
Open-minded skeptic. Okay. Now, I don't have any problem with skepticism. Sometimes I probably do need bringing down to earth, because you do have to be a little bit careful. When you go into a room, I'm always sort of very concerned if you go into a room and you suddenly hear knocking and things like that. You have to think, okay, that could be the radiator. That could be the pipes. It could be anything. And I always think paranormal is on the table along with all the practical things. So I go in there and I think, well, let's see what it is. Let's not just jump straight to the paranormal. And so I will check for other things as well. Sometimes I can check for other things straight away. Sometimes it might be a couple of days because I might need to do some research online and things like that. So an open-minded skeptic basically is, I believe in the paranormal. I believe in ghosts and spirits because I've seen them. But I won't jump into a room and immediately think the first knocking that's come up is a spirit. I will take in consideration that somebody might be banging on the wall purposely to try and make a fool of me, something like that. So I always think it's best just to be honest and say, let's have a look, let's see what it could be. So that tends to be the way I work. When I've done house clearances, because sometimes I get asked to go to a house to try and get the spirit to move on, there's certain things I have to do. As a medium, I've got used to what I know if somebody's spinning me a yarn. I tend to know quite quickly. And there are certain things you can do as well. But if I go to a house and they've got constant knocking or anything or something like that, then I won't immediately think they've got a spirit. I will ask them all sorts of questions about, when was the last time the radiators were changed over? When was the last time the pipes were cleaned out? And I also ask, but it's a very delicate question, is about mental health. Because there are some people who say they've been possessed and they haven't. They probably, they may have something. So I tend to say, check with your GPs, have a chat with them. But I don't turn around and accuse them of having a mental health problem. What I tend to do is I tend to say, well, it could be this, or this. I'll check for these. You check with your GP. Do you know what I mean? So I try and make it more of an open suggestion, rather than oh my God, it's you. Try and make it a bit more. So that's how why I call myself an open-minded skeptic, because I'm open up to suggestions. I don't immediately think that is paranormal.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to approach this, especially if you're investigating, because it's like, we don't want to jump to conclusions. There's so many other explanations out there,
Absolutely.
and probably the most rare one is paranormal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, somebody once told me, I don't know how true this is, but somebody once told me that they used to work for, or did they work for the police, or did they just hear it from a policeman? I can't remember. No, I can't remember. But somebody once told me that when they get an unsolved crime, that they've got all sorts of branches they can go off and try and find out what's happened. And paranormal, it sits on the table with all the others. But they won't go to the paranormal until they've checked everything else out. Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but that's what I was once told, that paranormal does sit on the table because, it's not been proved it isn't paranormal. If that makes sense. So I do know somebody. I mean, I've never had that opportunity, but I do know a friend of mine, a young lady medium, who has been involved with the police, helping with their inquiries and things like that. It's fascinating. I mean, I'd love to go, but she said to me, they do come to me and they do give me certain objects. They won't say anything, but 9 times out of 10, they're folding their arms to say, "Oh God, we really got to do this," But it's just so they can say, "Yeah, we did everything." So. Yeah. Interesting, though. And being a crime buff as well, you see.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah. Oh.
Now, in your answers to us in the questionnaire that we had sent, you actually mentioned, and also just now, the word possession. Have you ever come across a situation where you feel like that would be a correct thing to call something?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've witnessed a few, but there's 2 that really stand out to me. Obviously, I won't say the names of these people.
Right.
The worst one, it was a guy. There used to be a museum over here called the Robin Hood Museum. It was a wonderful place, and the guy who owned it, he had all sorts of artifacts. I felt he was very much in tune with the forest and Wicca. I felt that when I met him, but didn't speak to him that much. And I was doing, there was about 5 of us, I think. We were doing an investigation there. And at the bottom, now, one thing sorry, I'm leaping about here, but one thing I did notice when we were in there was a definite darker spirit, not a demon or anything like that, just a menacing one that wanted to sort of really piss about. And I felt that he was like a 20-something man. And I also felt that he was probably from around sort of the Victorian London type, where, but not one of the posh lot, probably a working class, probably works in a bar, certainly went to a bar. So he was a real nasty piece of work. And he was an abuser. He abused women and children and things like that. And I really felt, well, this guy's really nasty. Really don't want to. I don't want to take on his energy if I can help it. Mm-hmm. We had with us on this investigation a young lad. Again, he must have been in his 20s, I think. I can't remember now. Anyway, he must have been in his 20s, and he was learning to be a medium, if you like. He was learning how to hone his craft. I wasn't training him, but another, sorry, I'm going to get confusing. Another lady on the team was helping him and guiding him. We went down into the cellars of this museum, and this cellar is not very big. You probably, well, I say not very big. 5 of us got down there, and there was room to breathe. Anyway, this lad came down, and he had a K2, you know, the ones with the lights that come up, the electricians use, and they tend to use those for paranormal investigations. Mm-hmm. He came down, and suddenly he just dropped to the floor in the cellar. And we thought, hello, what's going on here? And the language he was using was quite blue, and he had taken on this gentleman who was very this abuser, if you like, and he really did. This poor guy, he was just shaking. He was thrashing about in this very small cellar, and we desperately tried to get him up the steps to get him out, because I said we need to get him out of the building, because the spirit is attached to the building and it's using him to talk to us. But this young lad is not ready for that sort of thing. So we managed to sort of slowly get him up the steps and onto the next floor. But his voice was different. His eyes were like black.
Wow.
And we eventually, it took all of us to get him out. We finally got him out of the museum, and we were in this high street, and he just sat on the floor, and the spirit had obviously left him at that point, but you could see he was he looked like he hadn't slept for a week. You know, he looked a real sort of mess, for the want of a better word. And what I found out afterwards, I spoke to him, and he was fine. He said he doesn't remember anything. He remembers going down to the cellar, and then then he suddenly said, and then we're outside of the shop. So what happened? So we explained it to him. But I had a chat with him on the side, because I was very curious as to why this spirit had chosen him, picked him, because I could have taken him on. The woman who was training, she could have taken him on. We would have known how to handle it. And I just figured maybe he's gone for the without being disrespectful for the young man, maybe he's gone for the trainee because he can manipulate him or something like that. But I spoke to this guy, and this guy had just come out of an abusive relationship with his partner. And I did wonder, is there some sort of energy match there? Could this spirit suddenly look at this guy and say, whoa, yeah, I can get into this guy because he has done, or he has been through what I put people through. This is only my guesswork.
Yeah.
This isn't nothing official, but I just sort of felt this spirit was nasty. He picked on people. He was a bully. And the type of torment that this lad, this training medium, had gone through in his past, to me, that's a perfect match of energy for this bully. So that was quite hairy. That's probably one that really sticks out in my mind, because where he was quite frightening for him, you know, because we were all thinking, oh my God, we've got to get this guy out, you know. I think if any skeptics would have been with us that night, I think they would have had a change of mind or a change of heart on what they'd just witnessed.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably the most, most horrific. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's certainly one that stands out. The other one that I saw that really stands out, I was doing what I do is I do public events. I work as a tour guide, if you like, on spirits that I pick up in haunted houses, and I do this for various companies, public event ghost hunting companies. And there was one night we were at a place called, it was an old workhouse. So it was a huge spread area. There was like an old kitchen, a church, the old workhouses from sort of the 19 or the 1800s or something like that. And I was asked if I would do a session with a group of this public, a spiritual session or something like that. So, okay, yeah, that's not a problem. So I had about 6 people. I took them to this church in the area. And this, let me get this right. It was 6 of them. I thought, okay, what am I going to do with these 6 people for the next half hour or so? And I thought, I shall do what's called a human pendulum. I don't know if you've heard of that at all. Yeah?
No.
Human pendulum?
No.
Okay. What it is, I mean, I've got to be honest, I am a little bit skeptical about it, but I've seen some strange things happen with this human pendulum. What it is, you get a group of people, let's say 6 people, they hold hands in a circle and they all get them to meditate, to slow down, and then you ask the spirits that are in the room to affect one of them, push them, poke them, push, whatever, kick them, pull at their hair, whatever. And that'll be the person that the spirit has picked to use as a conduit in order to talk to us. Anyway, this young girl, I don't know, she must be mid-20s to 30s, something like that. Very bright, bubbly sort of young lady. She'd been picked and she came into the middle, and it was her boyfriend who was behind her and I was in front of her, because I was going to ask the spirit to push her either to me for a yes or to her boyfriend for a no. So we get yes, no responses. Anyway, it was going great. We contacted spirit, and all of a sudden this young lady suddenly stopped being bubbly. It was really weird. And she just kept looking at me, but looking at me as if to say, I hate you. You know what I mean? A real sort of menacing look. And again, her eyes just went black. And I looked at her and I said, hello, someone's in there with you. And I said to her boyfriend, is this normal? And he came around and looked. He went, oh my God, no, it's not. What's happened? So I had to get her. It was her mum and dad was in the group as well. So we sat her down, but she did not want to come and sit down. This was a really strange setup. So we brought her down to one side. We sat her down, and I thought, right, I've got to bring her down to earth. I've got to get rid of this spirit that's taken over and bring her out to earth. So I sort of put her in, and I just spoke to her, talked to her, brought her down to earth, and I could see her family in my third eye. I could see her dog. I could see, the house, and I just kept saying, talk to your boyfriend, ask anything to bring her down to earth. And all of a sudden, she just leant forward and shook her head. And again, like the guy previously, she suddenly said, what's going on? Because the last thing she remembered was being in this circle before then waking up to find that she was sat down. So that was quite a strange one. That was quite strange. I've had a few like that, but those two tend to stand out a lot more. All good fun. I love what I do.
I mean, it's definitely fascinating, a little scary, but it makes sense to me, kind of how you just described, like how you helped the girl kind of like release that spirit. Yeah. For the guy in the first story, what do you think? Like, it sounds like bringing him outside is kind of what broke that connection. Do you have any theories as to why it broke that connection?
I feel, again, this is just my opinion. I felt that the spirit that had given him a bit of a bit of a hard time was connected to an object, maybe, or something within the building. And the closer he was to the object, I think the stronger he probably was. And I felt that taking him outside of that environment, away from that energy that he's used to, weakened him, if you like, to say, oh, I can't come outside here. I better stay in. It's like, is it the film Beetlejuice, where they can't leave the house? I haven't seen it for about 30 years, but I just suddenly thought of that vision where they can't leave the house. But that's what I think probably did it. That's what I think did. I'd have done the same with the young lady. If I couldn't bring her down to earth in the church, I would have asked her boyfriend to come outside and probably gone to a different part of the, just outside as far as I could take her before she, did anything silly. But,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All good fun.
So one of the stories you wanted to share with us, you described as a living in the matrix phenomenon. So tell us about that.
Yeah. It's quite a long story, but I'll try and sort of pot it down so people won't fall asleep. I must have been about 14, 15 when this very strange thing happened to me. I'll set the scene. Again, I was up in Bolton, and this was about 1975, 76, something like that. And I was every Thursday, I remember it was Thursday, we would have to go. Sorry. Okay. Right. When I went to school, the school that I was going to were also putting on a summer show in a theatre in Bolton. And every Thursday, I and my classmates had to go to this rehearsal simply because our maths teacher was the one who was directing or producing the school play. So every Thursday, without fail, and this is, you wouldn't be able to do this now. All of us, had to make our own way to the theatre in Bolton from the school. There was no coach trip or anything like that. You had to be there at, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. Anyway, this was, I keep stressing this was a set in stone, if you like. Every Thursday, that's what we had to do. We had to do this for about 3 or 4 months while they were rehearsing their show. I think it was Oliver they were doing. And I did this. What I used to do was I used to get up, make sure I had some packed lunch because we had to go to the theatre. And I'd see my mates, a couple of mates outside my house waiting for me, and we'd go to school. And then at 1 o'clock, we would make our way to the theatre. Now, because we were young, our parents used to give us bus fare money. But because we were young and foolish, we decided we'd spend that bus fare money on ourselves, on buying comics or sweets or whatever, and then walk to the theatre. We could do it. It wasn't a problem. And we did this every week. And then one particular Thursday, I got something just didn't feel right on that day, but I just ignored it. I just put it down to, I don't know, adolescence. And I got outside, my friends were there, we got to the school, and then when it came to 1 o'clock and actually having gone to the theatre, my friends suddenly said, we've got to catch the bus. And I looked at them, I thought, bus? I said, we don't catch the bus, we tend to walk. And they really didn't know what I was talking about. They said, no, we can't catch the bus, I've been walking. I thought, what? And I thought, oh, okay, fair enough, we'll catch the bus. Anyway, I got in there and I caught the bus and we made it to the theatre. And we actually got there in time as well. And I thought, well, I don't know, it just didn't feel right, but I just went with the flow. When the show had ended, it was normally about, when the rehearsal had finished, normally about 3 o'clock, something like that. Our maths teacher would then say, okay, 4C, whatever, you can now go home. And what we did was at 3 o'clock, we would, again, because we'd already spent our bus fare, normally we would walk across the fields and make our way back to where we lived, and that'd be it. But this was strange because we left the theatre, and as I started to cross the road, my two mates walked in the direction of the bus. And I said to them, guys, where are you going? They said, we've got to catch the bus. I said, we walk. And they really didn't have a clue what I was talking about. I thought, oh, they're on the wind up or something. And I thought, I'm not falling for this. I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow at school. So they thought, okay, fair enough. They got on the bus and they went. And I decided, okay, I'm going to just cut across the field. I crossed the road, went down the usual path, usual street, and the pathway to the entrance to the pathway that went across the field wasn't there. And I thought, oh, I must have come down the wrong road or something. And I looked and I thought, what on earth's going on? Anyway, I walked back up that same street and I went down to a different road, and there was a pathway there. Now, it wasn't the usual pathway, but I just figured, oh, maybe I just, because I'm with my mates, maybe I just don't look properly, and maybe this is the one. Anyway, I went down this path. Now, this is where it gets really strange. I went down this path, and I think I might have dropped something on the floor. I dropped something. I went to pick it up, and I got back up, and everything went quiet. There was no birds, no traffic, nothing. And I thought, and then I looked behind me, and the path that I was on suddenly just went off what looked like infinity. There was like no entrance to it. It just literally went on. And I looked forward, and it was exactly the same the other way. And I just thought, okay, now I'm scared. And I heard no birds. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. And this was strange. And I couldn't work out what was going on. So I decided to walk a bit faster to see. I did think of climbing over the hedge, but I was too scared in case something else strange might happen. So I decided to carry on. And I kept walking and walking and walking. And I started to walk faster and faster because I realized the end of the hedge, the end of this pathway isn't there. And I walked and eventually I ran. I was running down this path full speed, and suddenly I tripped over, like I must have been a bit of mud on the floor, a twig or something. I tripped over, covered myself in dirt. And when I got up from tripping over, all of a sudden I heard the cars, I heard the birds, I heard everything. And I looked back, and the path was normal again. It was simply just an entrance coming on. I hadn't actually moved forward, if you like. I was still only 5-6 yards away from the entrance of the pathway, and I looked forward, and I could see like it was like a factory or something in the distance, which we used to walk to in order to get home. It was like a landmark for us. Anyway, I got home, and I got a real sort of bit of, I think I got a telling off because I'd been away for about 3 hours. Normally I get back 3:30, 4 o'clock, but this time it was near 6 o'clock, and I couldn't work out what on earth had happened. I didn't tell my parents what had happened because I thought they'll think I'm making it up. And I kept this, well, I went to school the next day, and I said to my mates very tentatively, whereabouts is that path that we normally walk down? And they still didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And I kept quiet. I thought, okay, I'll leave it alone. Maybe I dreamt it. Maybe I don't know. And I left it. But it wasn't until years later when I started reading about people who had gone through similar things to this, totally unexplainable, totally don't make sense type stuff, that I suddenly realized, I wonder if that's what happened. Did I hit some sort of glitch, or did I? And so it's only the last couple of years I've started talking about it again, And I actually, through that, it's never happened again. Nothing like it has ever happened again. But because of that, I do lean more towards the living in the matrix theory, because there's no explanation for that happening. It was a one-off. And it's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to
me. That is an incredible story. So tell us what living in the matrix theory, what is that?
Well, okay. I'll explain it like this. Do you remember computer games when they first came out in the 80s? Have you ever seen the graphics of a computer game? Yeah. You had is it the Atari, where you had the little things going up and down with little dots? Right. Now, all these the graphics now are just amazing. But every company, if you like, is looking to make the graphics on a computer game like you or I, actual AIs, if you like, people who interact with. That's the graphics they're looking for, and they are really close to that. If you look at a computer game, I don't play a lot of computer. I very rarely play computer games. My son is very much, or he was very much, a computer game geek. And I used to say to him back, when he was playing them, what about all these other characters? Who controls them? And he said, they work on algorithm. They react to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat and I thought, okay, and I've sat and thought about this now, and you sit and think about AI. And if you think about it like this might sound a little bit far out, but this is only my theory. Every computer, if you like, is getting more and more advanced. So much so that all the characters are now becoming sentient, all depending on the algorithm that you play the game. So my theory is, are we one of these characters? Are we these characters in this matrix in a computer game? Does that make sense?
It does. Yes.
Yeah. This is why I tend to lean towards that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then there are literally thousands and thousands of matrices around the world.
Yeah.
And each one, if you like, each game has got more characters that are going to get advanced like we are. Yeah. And when they have created computer games in the same quality that we have, then you're talking about a universe within a universe. Does that make sense? I know it's far out, but that's just the way I tend,
Yeah.
when I look about it, I think about it, I tend to think that could be, we may be part of a vast network, but each one of us has got our own computer, and within our own computer is another vast network, which is getting more and more advanced. And then it just keeps going and going and going and going. And then you end up with thousands of different planets or areas or networks or matrices. That's my theory.
Do you feel like timelines, does that kind of fit into this theory, like people hopping timelines? And like, I mean, the story you described to me sounds a lot like the Mandela Effect, where it's like
Yes.
you remembered this very distinct reality and nobody
Yeah.
else remembers it.
Yeah, that's exactly, you're spot on there. That's why I think we do get things like the Mandela Effect, where something has changed along the way, and only a certain amount of us can remember it. Fair enough. I came across a Mandela Effect. It caused a bit of a stir a few years ago now. And sorry, there's a fly buzzing around me. I really should have a shower. Anyway, sorry. Where was I? Oh yeah. You've already heard of Queen, the rock band Queen,
Yes.
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of obviously their most popular tracks is We Are the Champions.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic anthem. Yeah. Now, for years, I'd always listen. I'm not going to sing it, don't worry. But I always used to listen to that song. And for years, it used to end with Freddie Mercury singing in his fantastic voice, Of the World. Of the world.
Yeah.
That's how I used to think it. Listen to it.
Okay.
It doesn't. It fades.
It does not. Yeah, it does not end that way. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I remember what you remember.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember listening to it when I was younger, and well, actually, no, a few years ago, when I was doing my Freddie Mercury poses around the front room when the wife was out. I got myself set up to do that in the world, and it didn't. It faded, and I thought, hello, that's not right. What's going on? And I put that on social media. So it was a few years ago now, and it caused an absolute storm. Oh yeah, you're right. Oh my god. So
Yeah.
that's probably the latest one. Everybody who's listening to this now is going to go to their News of the World album by Queen and start playing it. Be interesting actually if they do, to see what they remember. But
yeah. I just read a book recently called How to Change Your Universe, and it's about like timelines, and it's by a man named John Gabriel, and he has a whole like section that is about different Mandela effects, like how people remember certain things and how it's really different from reality. And like there's so many of them that I'm like just mind blown, that I'm like, no, like it was this way. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know. It's just it's like somebody's gone with a time machine right back to the beginning. And I don't know, changed it. And it hasn't affected everyone, only a few people. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It really is absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
Why do you think those maybe glitches or shifts? Why do you think they happen? Like, is there like something that like causes it to happen, or? Or, you know.
I don't know. Being perfectly honest, I don't know. If you're thinking of a matrix, it's like something's gone wrong with their computer. If we're part of a computer simulation, something somewhere has I don't know, sparked a plug or something, and they've had to reboot it. But this time when it's rebooted, in order, hang on, okay, this is only a theory. It's just suddenly come to me now. Maybe when they reboot it, they have to, because they've got to make it better when they reboot it. Maybe that's why there are some things that go a little bit off tangent. If you imagine you've created something new, right? It's broken, so you create it new, you make it better, but you haven't got that much memory. So there's some things in the memory that have got to give. So let's say, for example, the Queen song. Okay, let's take that bit out, because if I leave that in, I'm not going to have enough room to make this make this better. So they take it out. Oh, right, I can make it better now. But because we're all sentient beings, some people do and some people don't remember it a certain way. This is only theory. I'm just thinking outside the box. But you've got me thinking now. I'm going to have a look at that.
You got me thinking too. Who do you think they are? Like, I mean, obviously it's just a theory, but like, who's they?
Who's they? Yeah, somebody once said to me that we could be just a bit of grit under a giant's thumbnail. And the day he decides to clean his thumbnail that's it, end of life. So he would be the they, wouldn't he? So I suppose in this respect, the they will be probably some poor kid down in his basement playing a computer game. And he's probably got a chest freezer in his mum's basement as well. So anyway, that's another thing. Who are they? That's a good question. Oh yeah, you've got me thinking on there. I'm thinking of there's crumbs. There's a program, an American series, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Oh, was it called? No, it's gone. But no, I need to think about that one because my brain's going. Yeah, I need to go. It could be something simple, like a kid playing a computer game, couldn't it? Something that simple. And when he says, "Oh, I'm bored of this game now, I'm going to ditch it," that's it, end of life as we know it.
Yep. Shut down.
Depressing, isn't it? Yeah, it could, I can't remember. Travelers, that's it. Have you ever heard of a program called Travelers?
I have, but I haven't watched it. Oh, he's watched it. Yeah, I haven't.
Very good. Yeah.
That is a real thought-provoking program, actually. Okay. The fact that they've taken somebody's mind or downloaded who they are into the past, into other people to try and protect the future. That's a really mind-blowing concept. That wouldn't surprise me if something like that was going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's great. I'll have to check it out as long as Jonathan doesn't mind
it's a good
rewatching it.
I think they cancelled it after 3 seasons, which was unfortunate, but it was a good series. I must confess, I was quite impressed with it. Yeah.
It got enough of an ending to be an ending, I thought. Not like some of the ones that just get a cliffhanger and then you're like, what? I wasted 10 hours of my life. It wasn't really. I don't think it was as bad as that, at least.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, because it simply left it open that there could be another series, but at the same time, you knew they'd gone back in time to stop what they'd already been doing. Yeah. Excuse me. So yes, I think you're right. It did have a decent ending, as you say. Thought provoking.
Well, I mean that type of stuff, like, is. Unfortunately, whether that is the case or not, we still have things like credit scores and mortgages. Like, I think I kind of prefer the more random universe to that, just for a simple fact of, like, if someone has created the situation that we're in, and things like credit scores and serial killers exist, that seems like pretty sadistic programmer there.
Let's reprogram, please.
Some bored IT guys like, I know what I'll do to these guys.
Yeah, let's mix things up a bit.
Yeah.
Stick a Ted Bundy in there. That's sort of
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, there are parts of when I'm 42, I'm in the middle there, and
Mm.
there are times when there are certain parts of my life that I think about my past, and it feels like a story someone has told me, and it kind of makes you wonder, maybe it is a program, maybe somebody turned it on 6 days ago, and what we think is our memory is really just a backstory that was uploaded to us. And
Yeah.
we think we have these experiences, but in reality, the only thing we really have experienced is what we're experiencing right now.
Mm.
Who knows?
Yeah, I think you're right, and also I think that's why we get things like Mandela. Something's gone wrong with the upload.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. As you say, you might have only been switched on 5 days ago, but
Yeah.
they've yeah, interesting concept.
It's
Mm.
wild. Things to ponder that we probably will never have the answers for. But maybe.
No,
Who
I shouldn't.
knows?
I shouldn't think so.
Tell us about your podcast and where can people find you?
Yeah, my podcast. It's called Mark's Unexplained World. I was going to go for Unexplained World, but hundreds of people have already got that. So I think, well, if I put my name in front of it makes it stand out a little bit more. It basically covers, it's all under the banner, obviously, the unexplained, but I also cover things like disasters, medical disasters. And I mean, although I've done things like the like poltergeist cases and things like that, I've also covered things like Jeff the Talking Mongoose, which was a poltergeist case that happened in the Isle of Man back in the 70s, I believe. So I try, but I also did an episode on the Therac 25 incident, which was a medical disaster, a machine that was put in place, and instead of curing people, it killed them with too much radiation dose. So I try and do it across the board. The one I've got coming up this week is all about the missing people, the vanishing people of Nome in Alaska. I think that's sort of your end of the woods. And fair enough, there wasn't that much on it, to be honest with you. So I've tried to get as much details as I can from various different books and websites. I'm pretty much there, pretty much finished it now. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's an interesting topic. Nome is a super interesting place. You can't drive there. You have to either fly or go by water.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a long time ago that that's got like the highest suicide rate per capita of the U.S. or something like that. It's apparently a really rough place to be.
Yeah, well, it's apparently it's got a very rowdy nightlife as well. So I read, but yeah, you're right. And also, if you're there and you want to get home, you've got to wait for the right weather as well. It literally is out in the middle of nowhere. What sparked off the UFO side of it was, of course, the film The Fourth Kind. I don't know if you've seen that or not. No, it's a good film, actually. I did enjoy it. And what it's done is it's taken the cases, and instead of just looking at maybe possible serial killer or something like that, they've looked at the possibility that they could have been abducted by UFO aliens or something like that.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's an interesting place, though. I've learned quite a bit about it. So that's what's coming up this week. And it's available on, let me get this right, it's available pretty much everywhere except for iPhone, the iTunes. And the only reason for that is because I've got a really dreadful laptop, and every time I download the iTunes it crashes, so I need to get a new laptop. As soon as I sorted that, it will be on iTunes as well. But Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Prime. I also download it to YouTube as well, so
Awesome.
we listen to them there. It's out every Monday. I try and do it for about between 6 and 9 o'clock, around that sort of time. The shows are normally about half hour, 40, 45 minutes long. I don't like making my podcast too long in case I send people to sleep. But there's quite a wide variety of topics on there. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. So, yeah, I've had some good feedback from it. Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, sounds very interesting. So I think Jonathan has listened. I have not listened yet, but I definitely will.
That's all right.
I'm interested.
Yeah, Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, no pressure.
No, no pressure.
I try and listen to a lot of podcasts on the unexplained and things like that. Just to see what's out there. As a rule, I've got my favourites.
Yeah. I say thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This has been a great conversation and a lot to think about. So I appreciate that.
Certainly has, certainly. Well, I can only thank you for the opportunity as well. I love talking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to talk to people who can discuss it openly and instead of just laughing at me and telling me I'm crazy. That comes with the territory.
Yep. We understand that. And you're right. It's good to find your people, who get it and
definitely,
speak your language. So
I was going to say, don't forget to listen to the Queen song.
Yes, we'll do that.
for sure.
For sure.
Right. Well, it's been fantastic to meet you both. It really has. And I've really enjoyed this discussion.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks very much, Mark.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Okay. And you.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.